died.
Your brain died. What great opening.
Brain died.
Oh my god.
So tired today, dude.
I know.
Welcome everybody. Welcome back, everybody, to the For the Geeks podcast for what day is it today? February 2nd, 2025.
Yep.
Episode 26, I think.
I don't remember.
I think it's 26. I'm pretty sure it's 26.
Lol.
Welcome back, everybody. We are back again.
25,
again.
actually. Yeah.
No, 25 was the last episode.
No, it was 24.
Liar.
No, check the log. Anyway.
Anyways, welcome back, everybody. I am one of your hosts, Jon Miranda. Why did I say my name all weird?
Jon
Brain, no
Bro,
work.
you're
so
tired
good,
as hell.
Oh, God, it was a long night. My name's Jonathan Miranda. Y'all can call me Johnny. This is Chris Seger.
What up?
He is our other host.
Yep.
And we are your your friends for the day.
I guess
we are your disembodied voices in your head, listening while you're at work, at the gym, in the bathroom. I don't know.
Taking
whatever you
shit,
do with these voices is what you do with it. You know, I ain't gonna hate on you.
I will.
But yeah, welcome back, episode 20, whatever. It's been a long week, long 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, I recently just got into this amazing anime called The Eminence in Shadow. It's the most ridiculous isekai I've ever seen because, without spoiling too much, the main character basically live action role plays. He LARPs being a background character in like a story or in a video game, and he perceives people as NPCs, which is hilarious. The comedic timing is actually great and funny. Yes, he is significantly overpowered, but what's interesting is he makes up a lot of bullshit on the fly. This is for people that haven't seen it. A lot of bullshit, and that actually becomes true. So it's like if you were to guess and all of your guesses were correct, this is exactly what happens in the anime. And it's pretty violent. It gets violent really quickly, and he just doesn't give a damn about bystanders for the most part. He only cares about what's important to him specifically. He doesn't even care about having a relationship. He's just like, I don't have time for this shit. That's a main character thing to do, or whatever. So he wants less attention drawn to him. So that I watched that. I started a new Batman comic that came out. I need to read Absolute Wonder Woman and Absolute Superman. But basically, it's Absolute Batman. It takes place in the Absolute Universe, which was created after Darkseid was obliterated. And all of that evil energy that he had accumulated while being alive created a new universe in his image. And the Absolute Universe is Darkseid's...
They all look like Darkseid.
No, it's... he basically, all the heroes are fucked. So Batman is not a billionaire playboy. He's a blue-collar construction worker / engineer, and he doesn't even have Alfred. Alfred's a hitman, but he hunts down criminals, including vigilantes like Batman. Cool. This Batman is also fucking swole as shit, and his bat symbol is detachable and becomes like a short hand axe, so you can swipe and hurt people to the point where he'll almost kill somebody, but he won't kill them. Like, he'll nick the appropriate veins and whatever to cause severe damage, but he won't kill them. He's very precise. And
it's all that blue collar work,
basically. And it's interesting because in this universe, all the heroes are fucked. Like Superman, last son of Krypton, he doesn't have the Fortress of Solitude. He's alone as hell in this one. Wonder Woman, Themyscira, no. She came from hell. There's no Amazonians in hell. This is very out there, and it's super interesting, especially for the Batman part. Yeah, without all the nasty burns on her body.
I say it adds flavor.
We don't need crispy titties in here, okay? But and apparently
that is a debate for later.
But no, the Joker in this situation, what's interesting is people that know Batman and the Joker. When Batman comes onto the scene, the Joker enters the scene. When Batman leaves, the Joker leaves and becomes normal. In this scene, the Joker has existed well before Bruce became the Batman. And he's the billionaire in this scenario. He owns enterprises and everything. And he seems like a totally normal guy, which is scary because it's the Joker.
True sociopath.
You don't fucking know what's in his head. And I'm excited to see what comes from that, because there's only like 4 chapters out right now for each of those 3 comics, so I need to read the rest.
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
It is. And then what else did I do? I started watching Mythic Quest, which is a TV show I highly recommend to people if you have Apple TV or not. Basically, if you're into video games, you'll like this. TLDR, it's Mythic Quest is a video game in this TV show that mimics World of Warcraft. And Rob McElhenney is the creative director, great actor from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There's a slew of other familiar faces from comedic shows, like the guy who plays Abed in Community. Krieg, the guy who plays Krieg, I think it's Krieg or Krieger from It's Always Sunny, the homeless ex-priest guy. Him,
Krieger, and I think of Archer.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, wait, they all have the same name. Anyway, he's in there. There's a bunch of familiar faces. And what I mean by it's relatable for gamers is season 4 just started. Within the first 5 minutes, creative director runs up to the lead programmer's house or apartment. And he's like, I have an idea for the next expansion. The next expansion is going to take place in heaven. And the only way players can access it, even though they bought it, is if they die a valiant death. And the lead programmer is like, so you want me to program something that's almost impossible to do just so we can make an awesome new expansion? Fuck yes, I'm in. And in my opinion, that would be an interesting way to unleash content in a video game. The only way to get here, even though you bought it, is you have to complete a valiant death. You can't just die from a monster killing you. You have to die in an epic fashion, and then you're accepted into the expansion. Like, that's fucking cool. They have other stuff in the show where they're like, oh, how are we gonna bring in more players? Okay, we're going to throw more cosmetics at them and make tons of money. So there's that. There's an entire episode dedicated in the first season to how video games start off as like a love project. And then once it hits big, corporations want to buy it and create endless sequels, milk the shit out of it, and strip the art and love from it. And it comes to a point where the creator's like, where the hell did I go wrong? You chase the money. Yeah. That's where you went wrong. And that reflects a lot of the gaming society today. They sell out to these companies and then they lose the love from the first game in the sequels. But anyway, I digress. You should check out Mythic Quest. Season 4 just started. It's fucking phenomenal. Other than that, awesome. I've just been chilling, watching anime on episode 4 of Dragon Ball Daima, which is pretty good. But yeah, what about you?
I need to catch up on Daima. I've been behind on Daima, like badly.
Oh,
not like badly, but like I haven't been fucking what do you call it? I haven't
keeping up with it.
Yeah, keeping up with it. I got to episode fuck. I think I got to like episode 5 or 6, and they're on like 15 now.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Shoot. Other than that, this week I started playing League again, unfortunately.
Ugh.
You have Kevin to blame for that. He was just like,
damn you,
League.
Kevin.
Like, yeah, let's play League. Fuck yeah. And here I am, hating my life. Nah, I'm not hating my life. It's actually not so bad. Also been, what do you call it? I picked up, damn it. Oh my God, it's been a long night, dude. I went to a show last night. I'm super tired right now. I got home.
He's a raver, everybody, if you didn't know.
Got to see Ray Volpe. That was really cool. Got a new shirt, so I figured I'd wear it today.
Oh, nice. That's what that is.
I've been looking for something new to play, and I could not find it for the life of me. And then I started picking up Tales of Arise again.
Oh.
And got back into that because I fucking jumped the hurdle on this one boss that's just like a mean skill check cap for the game. It's stupid because it's like the second big boss you fight in the game. So it's like I don't know. I don't know if a lot of people. It's probably my fault because I chose hard, but I read
That's the way
online
to
a bunch
play
of
it.
stuff, and people were saying like, yeah, dude, like there's no reason this boss had to be that hard. It's a literal skill check for everyone playing this game. It was the first boss that like introduces like real like mechanics into their fight, so you like actually have to do certain things to make the fight like go your way.
Oh, okay.
But I got past it, so now I'm on the next part, and I'm playing that right now.
Nice.
I also picked up Age of Wonders 4 with Brooks again. So
I have no idea what that is. Is that like the Ages games?
It's like yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you know, what do you call it? Oh, shoot, it's like Civ. I can't remember what the name of the
RTS game.
Thank you, RTS.
It's an RTS.
See, it's brain hurt, seizure, stroke. But it's been cool. Other than that, I haven't actually been watching too much anime. I started watching Supernatural.
The TV show?
Yeah, the TV show. It's actually really fucking good.
What the hell? That's so random.
I didn't think it would be so good, but I keep seeing shit on my like Instagram and like online about it. And after watching The Boys and seeing Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy in there, I was just like, he's funny. He's a funny motherfucker. So I was like, what else has he done? And then I was like, oh yeah, he's been in Supernatural. And it's got like fucking 15 seasons.
God, you're gonna watch all of it?
Holy. And I was like, all right, I guess I have something new to watch now. So I started watching that, and I got really into it. I love things that are like about like occult stuff and creepy shit, supernatural kind of things. So like that show is really cool because it takes, not only does it do like ghosts and like demons and stuff like that, but it also does like mythical creatures like a Wendigo or Bigfoot, or it takes fairy tales or like creepy stories we used to tell like ourselves as kids, like Bloody Mary, and turns them into this like thing, like a real thing. And it's super fucking cool. It's basically just like demon hunters.
I can relate with you on that because I feel the same about mythological things, which is what, for example, I like Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, because it actually gave a representation of Davy Jones, because before that movie, nobody knew who the hell that was. It was just a location in the ocean, and Disney's like, this is what he looks like. I'm like, oh, cool. Now he's a thing. But yeah, so I understand that part of the
things like that. It was really, it's cool to see those kinds of things like kind of just pop up, and then you're like, oh, neat. Yeah, that's cool. I remember things like that. But the story itself is actually really good too, supposedly. So I'm not fully in it yet. I'm like invested currently just a bit, but I haven't gotten the full dive into the deep end of the story, but it's pretty cool. Honestly,
you could have
if you haven't watched it before, you should check it out.
I tried and I got bored. I got through like the first season. I'm like, this isn't for me.
I was gonna say it does have like very it gives off the like major CW vibe.
Oh yeah,
of like that young adult show kind of thing.
Yeah, not my cup of tea.
But it isn't as bad as I've seen some of the other ones.
Yeah, that's true.
I would put it on like the level of an Arrow kind of show, because Arrow was pretty good.
I didn't watch that either.
Oh, you didn't watch Arrow?
I didn't watch any live action DC shows. Just
DB. Dragon Ball shows? I wouldn't either.
God, no. Don't talk about that.
I have to say, Chow Yun-Fat as Master Roshi was an amazing cast, though.
Yeah, he was perfect. That's about it.
But yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to. Other than that, it's just been kind of pandering to like random fighting games. Me and Brooks picked up Melty Blood.
Never heard of that.
It's based on a visual novel / manga called Tsukihime about vampires and this kid who gets this power one day to be able to like see lines on things, and if he traces the line with an object, it cuts it completely.
That's interesting.
It's a cool fighting game, really fun. Melty Blood, Type Lumina.
Okay,
if you're into anime fighters, you guys should check it out. It's
Jose for sure.
It's an insane amount of fucking. I'm sure he's heard of it already.
Probably. Dude, he loved fucking Skullgirls. That was like one of his favorite fighting games ever.
Me and Brooks were playing Skullgirls for a while there too.
Nice.
I got a DLC character and then stopped playing, so I got all sad. I was just like, oh, I wanted to play Annie. She's she doesn't play like Goku does, but she has like an attack that's like a spirit bomb, and I was just like, that's fucking cool. I want to do
nice.
that.
Ball of energy.
So yeah, other than that, there's probably a few other things I could bring up, but don't want to run it on too long.
I don't even think I gamed. No, I haven't really gamed much in the last 2 weeks. I've been sort of on a hiatus. I've just been really into just watching anime and stuff. I'm just like, I kind of want to just buckle down. Like when COVID started, I did the same thing. I just wanted to buckle down and keep watching things and pause gaming for a while. I'll get back to gaming eventually, but anyway, yeah.
I mean, it's good to take a break.
Yeah.
Just like with working out, you got to take a break every once in a while to let yourself rest and recover, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, let's
get to the main topics.
We'll pick up this shit afterwards. I'm sure there's more to talk about, but our main topic today, at least for the episodes chatting it up, is going to be,
we have 2 of them.
What age? Oh yeah, technically 2. What age did you start paying attention to video game stories, Sniffles?
I
won't be able to tell you an actual age.
I don't think so.
I can give you like an era of my life where
I think
I can give you the game that did it.
Me too. So for me, I don't know what age I was, but it was Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars on Super Nintendo. It'll always be my favorite Super Mario game, and I don't even remember. I didn't buy it. I remember I was in like Oxnard with my dad and brother, and we were at a swap meet. I've never been to a swap meet prior to that. I was still in elementary school, so I was super young. And I remember he bought it for like $7, which is rare to buy a video game for $7. Like even I look back and Super Nintendo games back then were still like, $50, like they should be, not 70. But he bought it. I plugged it in. I played it. And it was the first time I had to pay attention because I actually had to read the text on the screen. I didn't have to do that for Super Mario World as much because I just like, the princess is not here or some other shit. And then it was also interesting because it was one of the few times Nintendo collaborated with Square Enix. At the time, it was just called Squaresoft. Or even Square. I think it was just Square at the time. But they collaborated. Square did all the JRPG elements into Nintendo. And it became an interesting story. For those who haven't played it, you can now on the Switch because they released a remake of it, which I will be buying with the Switch 2 because it's backwards compatible. Basically, TLDR, Mario shows up at Bowser's castle because Bowser kidnapped the princess. As usual, you fight Bowser. You win, and then this big ass sword shoves itself down from the sky and lands itself in Bowser's castle, kicks Bowser out, and the guy who was it's actually a ship. The guy who was piloting the giant sword started making
mech, Shinji.
He started making weapons, and which like he would clone NPCs in the game and make mechanized versions of those characters because he wanted to just pollute the world with machinery because organisms are useless or some shit like that. But in doing so, he broke this magical thing called Star Road, which keeps everyone's wish upon a stars active. So you break it, nobody gets any of their wishes, so there's no more wishing stars. So you're tasked to save the entire kingdom in Mario by stopping all these fucking machines from coming out. Yeah, basically. And you team up with Bowser. This is the only time I've seen you actually team up with Bowser because Bowser's pissed because he got kicked out of his house. So you team up with Bowser. This is the game that introduced Geno, that rare blue-cloaked wooden doll character with incredible power that nobody can pronounce his name because it's like written into the story that you can't pronounce his name. So it's
foreign language.
Yeah, and then this cloud guy named Mallow, like Marshmallow, and Peach. Those are all the people on your team. It's really fun if you like JRPGs and Super Mario. It's great. I've probably played its completion like 15 times because I just loved playing the shit out of it back then. But that was the
15
first
times?
Probably. It's one of my most played video games of all time because I love it so much. I even streamed it a couple years ago for people. people that hadn't seen it, including Jose. He was like, "What the fuck? Bowser's teaming up with Mario?" I'm like, "In this game, yeah." But
there have been other games where they team up with Bowser.
I have no idea which ones they are.
It's the Game Boy ones, the RPG ones for the Game Boy.
The 1,000-Year Door and stuff like that.
Was it 1,000-Year Door? I can't remember. It was the Mario and Luigi ones.
Oh, well, yeah, isn't that the
Luigi
1,000-Year Door? That's one of them.
I think so, maybe. Yeah. I can't remember.
Nintendo people correct me.
I recall it. But yeah, there have been a couple of what do you call it? A couple of
team ups with the bad guys.
Team ups with Bowser, surprisingly, in their career. But I mean, it's obviously a temporary alliance.
Yeah. Because once that happened in the game, it's like, oh, back to normal. Mario's going to fight Bowser again. But yeah, that was my first JRPG, the game that I paid attention to. How about you? Which one was yours?
See, here's the thing. There's a very long period where I was, as a kid, like, so as a kid, I played games. I played a lot of games, and given that games back at the time, the story was very hidden. It was more in external media, such as comic books or TV shows, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I started playing games, old school platformers like Super Mario Brothers or Sonic the Hedgehog, even Vector Man, random little like Sega Genesis, Nintendo games. And I feel like I didn't start really paying attention to story games until stories became a progressive narrative in video games, which sure happened during the Super Nintendo era, but I was so young as a kid that I couldn't really focus hard on what the story itself was. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. I liked this question when you posed it at first because it made me actually think, because I was like, when was like the time that I actually was conscious about the stories of video games? And that specifically took me back to like the Xbox 360 era, where I was playing games like Halo 2 and Halo 3 and Gears of War, games with a huge narrative.
Yeah.
Mass Effect, where story was, where the beginning era of where story became Hollywoodized, you know, it became more mega blockbuster style. People were working with facial recognition and mocap and getting to build these scenes and these stories that actually were able to be emphasized on by the characters to give you that depth, that perception, and that what's the word?
Immersion?
Yes, immersion.
It definitely helps with immersion to connect with characters because they actually have a life and in the game and they're living and breathing. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think so. I started thinking, right? I was just like, okay, yeah, I paid attention to stories then, but then I made me go back further. I was like, I definitely was playing games for story before that. So I went back another like rung in the ladder, and then given they weren't the best of stories, I was just like, I remembered I played Tenchu. It was one of the first games I got on PlayStation. The very first game I got on PlayStation. I say this all the time, but my dad did not think this through very well. And I don't hate him for it, and I'm not mad about it. But like that game was not meant for children.
No.
And I was like 8 or 9.
Oh my god!
A very bloody, violent ninja killing game.
Shit!
It was great. It is still to this day one of my favorite like stealth action games. Aside from like Metal Gear Solid, and just to diverge on this a little bit, did you realize how many action games were stealth action games at that era of video gaming? It was insane. There was so fucking many.
Yeah,
I don't understand why that was such like a big boom. It was insane.
I don't know either.
It was that, and it was like survival horror.
Oh yeah, that too.
You had Silent Hill, you had Parasite Eve, you had fucking Resident Evil, like blah blah blah.
The Suffering. Oh my god.
The list goes on. The Suffering, Fatal Frame, fucking
shit.
The list goes on.
Yeah.
I digress. But I think around that era, Tenchu, Yoshi's Story, Super Mario 64 even. Was probably around the time where I started paying attention to video game stories. Even then, they weren't super fleshed out, but like Tenchu actually had story.
Yes.
Super Mario 64 had an actual story.
Yep.
Like, it wasn't just I am in this kingdom. Let me step on mushroom people. I don't know anything about them. Why would I kill them? I don't know, but I'm gonna go do it. What? Like I'm just a sociopath. I didn't come here to save no princess. I came here to kill Goombas,
basically, and Koopas. Yeah.
But like, yeah, that's probably where around the time it was, and I think the reason I associate it so much to PlayStation games is because I feel like PlayStation games tended to have more in-depth narratives, even that early in their life cycle, than a lot of other consoles did.
I agree. Yeah, they did. It's because, like, I can agree with that because at the time, Nintendo was very just gameplay focused. Like, they still kind of do for the most part. That is their flagship formula, is to let's make the best gameplay possible, which they do. They always have stellar gameplay. It's hard for them to make an L with their focus on that. But then the way their story works is you play the gameplay and you figure out the story later. Like it's like how Simon explained to me, our mutual friend here, that like Breath of the Wild, for example, it's a non-linear Zelda game. It doesn't throw the story at you like Ocarina of Time does. You have to go out there and find it by playing it. Similar to Conan Exiles. You dropped in a sandbox world. You don't know what the hell happened, but the game's not telling you any story. You find it just by, lifting up a rock and there's a paper there, which is which is kind of how Nintendo does some of their games. The less story, more gameplay, and whatnot.
Absolutely.
But when I did have my PlayStation 1, a lot of games there did have significantly more story. I remember the first story game I played on PlayStation 1 was Taifu Wrath of the Tiger, which is the spiritual predecessor to Kung Fu Panda. It was literally about a tiger learning different martial arts style, the monkey style, the crane style, the dragon style, all of that. And it was a cool third-person isometric martial arts game where you played as a fucking fighting tiger, and it had a Chinese story to go along with it, which was really cool. So I totally agree with you on that part.
You know what that reminds me of? You remember Jade Dynasty?
Or
Jade Empire.
Jade Empire. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Such a good game.
I loved Close Fist all the way, not open.
And those were like the good old BioWare days.
Yeah,
back when BioWare was like in their fucking bag.
Peak.
Oh man, I remember the story of Jade Empire very slightly.
Me too.
Well,
I don't remember.
I remember its gameplay and like everything else about it very fucking well.
I loved it. I think that's the first game I played where I had to decide to be a good or bad person too, because it was I played that before I played Knights of the Old Republic. So
I think I played Knights of the Old Republic first. I think that was the first time I ever. Yeah, the morality system, that was the first time it was introduced to it, was Knights of the Old Republic.
Yep, that was BioWare's bread and butter back then.
Yeah, and I love that.
Me too.
That specific like mechanic in video games really leans into having getting people immersed into the game, because that whole ideology of being able to, or that whole ideology of taking actions, making actions, and suffering the consequences, whether they're good or bad, gives you investment into the choices you make. And given, that it's a video game world, some people will tell you, oh, who cares what you do to them? It's just like, if you play that game to say, pretend like you're that person in that world and be that person, then if you're going to be you in that world, it's going to affect you, because people like me, I run on like this weird chaotic scale where like I don't think this is bad, but people think this is bad, but I think it's fucking normal. I think that was fine. You should have done that. Or I'm doing something really good for no goddamn reason. Like, why would you do that? It's just like, well, some people deserve second chances. So this guy seems to think so. I mean, why not?
That's exactly why every time I played Mass Effect, I can't go renegade. No matter what I do, I feel like a fucking piece of shit. And I'll end the game on a cycle of depression if I completed it with renegade. Because I'm like, I feel like I need to save the goddamn galaxy because that's what you're doing. And I'm like, I don't want to be a dick about it. I don't want to lose people.
I absolutely fucking feel that.
Yeah. But when it comes to Star Wars, I don't fucking care. I'm a Sith Lord. Y'all can die.
Well, that's a different kind of like power fantasy, though, you know?
Yeah. And I'll get into it when we list the top, but basically the way I'm like that is because Mass Effect is more grounded, it's more believable as a future than Star Wars, because we don't have a mysterious invisible force called the Force to move things, and we don't have lightsabers. Mass Effect, it's Earth in the future. They discovered ancient technology and they reverse engineered it to improve society. And I'm like, yeah, I could see us doing that as compared to Star Wars. So that's why in Mass Effect, I have to be a good person. I can't be a piece of shit and cause genocide. What are you, crazy?
Yeah.
But anyway, back to you.
But yeah, let's see. Tenchu. Yeah, I think Tenchu is probably
okay.
Or I guess not Tenchu specifically was the first video game story I paid attention to, but it's the one where I started, and then I think that's where I was like, oh, these games actually have a story. Oh, there's something happening, and I was like invested in it and like fully like zoned in. It wasn't just the gameplay, the combat, and given that game has not aged well, I started doing a replay on my stream, and
like,
I love it still. I love it. I enjoy it.
I feel the same about Sonic Adventure 2. I'm just like, this is jank as hell, but I love the game.
And I love the jank. The jank for me is great, but it's just I can tell like it don't feel that
so
smooth.
Dated. Yeah,
it ain't the same. But I think my final answer is going to be Ocarina of Time. I think, or Ocarina, whatever you want to call it.
Ocarina. It's a great fucking game that I never beat. Yeah. Fuck the Water Temple. Fuck the
that one had a great story, and
it was great.
That was the first time I started really paying attention, because I got my N64 after I got my PlayStation. I had all the violent games before I got the kid games. Tell me why
I'm the other way around.
Works.
See it.
Tell me how that works, please. It doesn't make sense, but that's probably it.
Ocarina of Time, classic.
Yeah, Ocarina of Time is where I started.
Yeah,
and then from there it was a fucking downhill slope.
I even had the strategy guide, but my child brain was too underdeveloped to understand how the water temple worked. Like, I remember because I watched it in a video exactly what I needed to do, but this never clicked with me as a kid. There's a part where you're supposed to open like a latch and you go under a platform to access a certain part of the water temple.
Yeah.
And that'll progress you. I never figured that out, even following the instructions in the guide. I'm just like, I quit. Yeah. I'm done. I managed to get the big Goron sword. I did all this other thing, but I couldn't get past the water temple. I was like, fuck this shit. And I remember this was interesting too, because my dad also got Ocarina of Time from a swap meet, because there was a save file on there. I still have it. I haven't deleted it.
Yeah.
It was named Andy. I'm like, who the hell's Andy? I'm like, oh, this was somebody's save file, and he already got as far as like, what's the Spirit Temple? He got as far as the Spirit Temple, but didn't beat the game. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna touch this. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to play my own file.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was also a cool thing about like old video games, the cartridge system and saving. It was so neat to like pull somebody's old save off of buying a used game back in the day, because there were those few like random ones who like hacked the cartridge and like put on some crazy shit. But like you just being able to see like where a person either completed or fucking gave up in a game. Because I definitely bought like some Nintendo 64 games where I got it back and I loaded it up as a kid and saw somebody played it for like 5 hours and stopped, and then they weren't even like they were not even done. I didn't know at the time I'd get through the game, but like they didn't even finish.
Yeah,
and it's just like, dude, that's wild.
It's good shit.
It happened a lot with Game Boy games.
I never had that. I don't think because I bought all my games new except for Pokemon Ruby. I bought that one. That's the last Pokemon game I played, because I went to GameStop. I loaded it in my cartridge when I got home, and I wore my Game Boy SP. Didn't load. I'm like, okay, take it back. Got another one. Didn't load. I'm like, why do you have broken games here if on the fucking shelf?
Some people just don't check that shit.
No, they didn't. I had to go through 3 cartridges till I found the one that worked too. Fucking
Cartridges were also a very faulty system.
That too. So. People kept blowing into them. That doesn't do anything.
That's how we were taught. All right?
I know. Or you'd use like rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip, clean the chip part, and make it work. I'm like, no, you're just damaging the chip. I'm like, oh shit.
I didn't do the alcohol thing, but I blew into my cartridges all the time, and
As
it never fucking didn't work.
Yeah, I know. It didn't work.
I assumed that had something to do with heating it up or something. I saw that somewhere where they were like, yeah, if you heat it up, then that's how it works. But like, I was like, I don't get it.
I also didn't know they have batteries on the chips.
Yeah.
That's so weird to me because I saw some like a game store repairing a Game Boy game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's a video for listeners. There's a video or videos of people repairing Game Boy games because they'll take the chip out of the cartridge and they'll like solder parts and fix the battery and replace the battery. I'm like, I didn't know it needed a battery to function. That's so weird. Like CDs don't, but I guess cartridges did.
I don't understand how the system itself works, but it is crazy that it runs on a battery.
Yeah. And it long-lasting battery.
It didn't make sense to me like before, and as I thought about it more and more, I was just like, you're right. How would all of those electronics work if they're not getting power?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so my brain like clicked it the other day, and I was just like, oh, shit.
But now we have CDs. We don't need to... There's no battery in a CD.
Well, we don't even have CDs anymore. Now
no, it's the cloud.
Now it's just data disks and or fucking storage units.
That's basically.
And you know, that's an argument for another time. Whether it is physical versus digital, blah blah blah. But that's not the topic today. So we're to shelf that one because that one will go on for a long time.
What would you say are your top story games of all time?
Top story games. All right, in no particular order right now.
Yes.
I'm gonna make some people mad.
Go ahead.
Of all time, best ones. I'm gonna start with the ones that are like obvious.
I'm gonna make you mad with my choice too.
First and foremost, I'm gonna go with God of War series. I'm gonna say this real quick. How about we trade off title for title and give off like like
the gist of it? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And here's another question. I know we're talking about stories and top five, and I'm sure we'll get to why they're top fives.
Yeah.
But if we do so in that way, should we give a spoiler warning? Because I assumed we were probably going to mention some spoilers because there's...
Yeah, we'll give a spoiler warning. I won't spoil a certain game for you because you haven't fucking played it yet. You need to give it a second try. But for other people, especially Jose, one of my choices, I'll say it's a spoiler. You can mute after that. But yeah.
Just to be fair to the audience, don't want to ruin someone's time of a game that they're not sure of or they weren't sure, and then hear us talk about it and be like, well, now I gotta try it.
Insert spoiler warning sound. I don't know where I put
it. Fucking air horn.
No, I made an actual sound bite.
Oh, did you? That's funny.
But all right, you first.
Okay, so in no particular order, let me start with I'll start with what I was saying. God of War. So
good choice.
When I say God of War, I mean the Norse mythology series. I'm not talking about 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3 were cool, but they were your typical run-of-the-mill revenge story that we had all the time. And given they are integral to what makes the story of the Norse series that much better.
Which is why I didn't understand
everyone knows the story of the original God of War. And it's been so long that there's no real spoiler warning for this. If you haven't played the original God of War series and you don't understand it's about revenge, like I don't know what to tell you. Have you seen the gameplay? You're just ruthlessly killing things and screaming at everything. It's obviously about revenge.
I just figured that out by playing it. I'm like, oh, there must be a problem. There's revenge. I got it. Yeah. I didn't need to play the original. But anyway, continue.
So basically, for the quick gist of everything, God of War is a series for those. I can't believe I have to say this, but for those of you who haven't played it,
Simon, he doesn't care.
God of War follows the story of a man named Kratos, a Spartan warrior, makes a deal with a Greek god, Ares, the god of war, to get revenge on the people who killed his family. Little did he know, blah, 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 blah. This whole thing was, for lack of a better word, there were things done behind his back to make it happen in such a way. There were ulterior motives, and they wanted him to be the god of, their scion of the god of war. He got angry and he found out, and he was like, "No, what? Fuck you guys! I'm gonna kill you all." Proceeds to murder the whole Greek pantheon, essentially. Becomes the new god of war of Greece, Greece, and then story ends. He gets his revenge, and then he moves on. No one knows what happens. The game picks up later in 2018's version, God of War, where you meet Kratos as an old man with a son. Mm-hmm. And the thing about this game that really fucking kicked me was that I love parent-child stories.
Yes.
I don't have any children of my own, and I don't have that same kind of like parent-child relationship thing with my family.
Same.
But for God of War, like, I was so deeply involved in how difficult from the first game to Ragnarok that Kratos had to grow. He not only he was fine with being himself by himself.
Yeah.
But when he finally got to a point where he realized, I have to raise someone to be a big phrase that everyone uses from the game is be better.
Yep.
To be better than he was, because he has had time to reflect on what he's done. And he's like, I did what was the thing I think he pulls from it is that I did what was necessary at the time, but it doesn't have to be necessary for you. So he's like it's a very teaching story. It is both a coming of age story and a redemption story.
Yep.
And it's watching Kratos go through these motions with his son, who is very much like him to an extent, very headstrong as a young person and very annoying to a lot of people who watched and played the game. Atreus is pretty bad in the first game. He gets a little bit better in the second game, but
he's a kid.
His character is a kid. It's a child.
And he's learning from a fucking god killer. Like, that's not a normal father-son relationship. So people got to keep that in mind.
And you got to think about how Kratos grew up. He is a Spartan. He grew up in a wartime people. Their life was breathe, bleed, breed, war.
It's just combat.
That was a good way of putting it. Oh my god, I'm
fucking bars.
But it's him learning how to be not so hard. It's teaching him that the world has hardship, has difficulty, but you don't need to meet it with that same resistance, and that there's other ways of solving your problems, and that killing is not always the option.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's respecting his godhood and not using it as a platform of power. And there was just so much growth between Atreus and his father, and bonding, and just watching them both develop as people and becoming better people. It was insanely touching. There were like multiple moments throughout that series where I actually cried, and I was just like,
yeah, as did I.
That shit gets me fucking emotional, and it was just so well written, just so involved, and I fucking love that series.
I love a good father-son story, in my opinion. That's why I can connect with the God of War game, because I was playing it and I'm like, it reminds me a lot of the relationship I have with my father, and how he did a lot of things that he probably shouldn't do as a father, because when you're a parent, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. That's the rule. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. He didn't either, but I can understand the connection between Atreus and Kratos, because there's a lot of hard lessons that were pummeled into Atreus. I'm like, I went through that too. Oh, you died.
No, my camera.
What happened? Shit. Technical difficulties.
Technical. Bing. Plays fucking
Jeopardy music. Fuck.
Elevator music.
Shit.
Sorry. 1 second.
Nope, it's fine.
It'll be back in a second. Continue, please.
But no, that's all I had to say, because it was are you done with your input on that, or off? Okay.
Yeah.
So again, no particular order. My one of my top 5 games is Final Fantasy X. It's the first Final Fantasy I ever played, And I'll
I
argue
would say that's your top game. Honestly, I would argue that one.
Yeah, it's basically my top game of all time, my favorite, because it's the most unique Final Fantasy. And yes, there is a father-son relationship here. Again, because the father character in Final Fantasy X, Jecht, he was a dick to Tidus all Tidus's young life, but he was trying to make him a stronger and better person than he was, because he knew he couldn't do any better for himself, but he could do better for Tidus. And so it got to a point where, yeah, for spoilers who haven't played it, you do have to kill Jecht, because he took on the role of this giant evil that's cleansing Spira in the world in Final Fantasy X, and he's stuck doing it. He needs his son to kill him so that he can be set free. The overall story of Final Fantasy X is this main character, Tidus. He's a blitzball player, which is like underwater soccer.
Which underwater soccer polo.
Yeah, which I like. I know a lot of people don't like it. They can because they suck. So get good, like the Souls players say. But basically, he's playing Star of the Xanarkid. He gets destruction happens. This giant monster starts destroying Xanarkid. He gets swept away 1,000 years into the future. And spoiler warning, again, he finds out at some point he's not even real. Where he came from, that entire city isn't even real, because there's this magic happening that I won't really dive into because it's too long. I'll do that in a video essay, obviously.
I'll just say it's massively elaborate.
Yeah, there's going to be a big video essay on that.
Overly convoluted, just like every Final Fantasy game.
Oh, yeah. But he's not even real, and his entire town wasn't even real. They're part of a dream that these people, they're constantly dreaming it. And this game has a touching story because it's a teenager, he's just trying to go back home. He's trying to figure out how to save his love, the summoner, Yuna, and he can't really do much, and he has to deal with the fact that she's going to die for the most part, and they're all probably going to die while saving the world, and he has to try to find a solution. A 15-year-old has to deal with this, by the way, and yes, I don't even care that the memes are like, the laughing scene, because everyone knows in the Final Fantasy verse that 10 has the cringiest moment, which is Tidus and Yuna just laughing. Ah, ha, 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 ha. But the whole point of that was to get over your depression and to force a smile on people's faces when the world is, being destroyed by this giant monster. So it's a moment of hope, and people take that out of context. And even the voice actor addressed this problem on YouTube like 10 years ago, explaining to people why that was necessary. But I like the attention to detail in the story. This is also a big reason why I like it, because I like the villain plot, the pseudo-villain plot.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, there's villains that are like, I want to destroy the world. I want to rule the world. I want to do this and this. I'm getting revenge. The Seymour's ambition for destroying, for why he's a villain, is because he sees that every 2 years this monster comes and destroys the world in the game. So the summoners have to summon a creature to destroy it, and the cycle continues. He sees this and he says, how do we stop Spira from suffering? Well, why don't I just end everybody's life and become the monster? That way there's no suffering because there's nobody alive. Technically, he is correct. Much like in Star Wars, the Empire technically created a form of peace by creating a dictatorship. Unwanted, but it created a form of peace. Same with Seymour's MO. By eliminating all the people, you eliminate all suffering on the planet. This is actually tied to, I believe he's a Roman philosopher, one of my favorite ones, Tacitus. And an excerpt from one of his writings is, where they make a wasteland, they call it peace. Meaning, sometimes the only way to create peace is to destroy everything and start over, which is exactly what Seymour wanted to do. And I like that ambition for a villain because it's different. It's not explored much. Usually it's a revenge story, or it's, I just hate everything. I want everybody to die, like fucking Aizen in Bleach, stuff like that. But this, to me, caught my eye. I'm like, I've never seen this kind of story before. It doesn't show up very often. It showed up in Final Fantasy 14 in Endwalker, but it was handled poorly because the villain was immature as shit about it. But other than that,
tends to happen.
This game is just the story just constantly kept getting better. And I played recently. Every time I play it, I cry at some point. It doesn't matter where, especially when you see Orin's going through his story moment about how he failed to protect Lord Braska. He failed the mission of being a guardian. He wanted to, be better, and he failed. And I teared up because I'm like, this dude went through so much shit, and he failed. And he's my favorite Final Fantasy character too. But that's kind of the gist of Final Fantasy X. I'll get into it eventually in a video essay because I'm already streaming it and gonna 100% it. But
right,
that's my number one story-based game. So what is about your number two?
Let's see.
Or not in order.
Let's see. My next one, I think I'll go with well, since you're already on the Final Fantasy,
I knew it.
My favorite Final Fantasy.
Here it is.
So I would say that my favorite would actually be 6.
Okay, that's
been
new.
Long since I've played it.
6. Okay.
6 has a good story and the villain is good.
Who's the villain in that one?
The heroes are good. Kafka.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The villain is good. The heroes are good. But I haven't played it in a long time, so I don't fully remember the story that well. And I've been meaning to replay it, and I just haven't gotten around to it. Okay. So I'm going to go with Final Fantasy VII for now because that's the one I do remember really well, and I have played that game a bunch of times. It's super big right now because of Remake and Rebirth. But I put both of them because I like what both games have done for the story and series itself. I was unsure about Remake when I first played it because I'm very hardcore on the original. But after Rebirth came out and things kind of started making a little bit more sense, to me in terms of what the story was and what things were, I started saying Rebirth and Remake actually are really, really good. But I'll go off of just the base Final Fantasy VII story since I know you haven't played Rebirth or Remake yet. So base Final Fantasy VII is about a bunch of eco-terrorists who want to make the world a better place. You start off as a mercenary named Cloud. You're infiltrating a factory that produces energy for the city that is doing it in ways that is not very much good for the earth or the world, I should say. And you're brand new to this crew that takes you along, and they're like asking you questions as you start. They're kind of immersing you into your character as you go in, which I think is a really good start for a lot of the Final Fantasies.
Yeah.
Most of the times you just pick up the character and go on the adventure. You don't really get immersed into your character. So like this narrative that builds up who you are, walking into your first like big job with them is really interesting and unique for me. But aside from that, the story itself centers around what I believe to be more of a philosophical aspect, and I think more of a turn on the whole like what is best for everybody sort of thing. Is it the decision of one person or is it the decision of many, etc., etc.?
Yeah.
Like the delving beneath the beyond all of our ups and downs, whether we are friends or foe, like at the end of the day, the survival of our species as a whole is more important and more integral to the growth of our societies as a whole than it is to have one society be the major dominating force. It tackles a lot of political aspects, a lot of again, ecological. Is that the right word?
Ecological.
Eco.
Yeah.
Is it eco or echo? I don't know.
It's
a lot of
interchangeable
ecological like concerns, and it at the time was like during a time when it came out was where we were starting to notice in our actual world that like we were doing a lot of damage to the earth, like eco not eco-terrorists were like becoming a big thing, not like in a like bombing places away, but in people chaining themselves to fucking trees in the Amazon, that sort of thing, you know, like I can't remember the name of the word. I'm not remembering any words today.
Activist? Is that what you're looking for? There you go.
There were a lot of activists. Thank you. There were a lot of activist groups around the time, and like, you know, scientists coming out saying, "Hey, we're doing irreparable damage to our planet," and it all coincided together with like that game coming out and doing the same thing, where people were like, "We're doing damage to this planet." It was one of the first times I saw a video game harp on current problems and bring it up in a medium that wasn't just like a news report where, you know, the older generation would be like, it's not going to be my problem, it's going to be their problem, I don't care.
Yeah.
But it resonated with me because I was part of the generation whose problem it would be. So Final Fantasy VII really pulled out a lot of, really helped me format and build the foundations of some of my belief systems, in a sense, because it made me start thinking about the grander scheme of things outside of what my own personal struggle is. I think of the games I've picked, that this one would be probably one of the more politically driven ones that I think exist. Not so much in a philosophical aspect, but in an actual aspect.
See, now it sounds more interesting to me because I like this.
And it's cool because like you go through these motions in the story with the characters where your own beliefs are tested from various characters. And it's like, yes, there is a main villain of the story, but you meet other characters throughout the story who you think originally are going to be villains, but they're not really villains. They're just antagonists. They are just the antagonist to your protagonist. They're not antagonists in the sense of like, I want to destroy everything, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, they have their own belief system, their own like reasons for doing things, and their own like drive behind those reasons. And every time you meet with like some of these people, you are pushed, pressured, and tested by them saying to, you know what, this brings up a good point. I think this is a point in video games where I noticed that the characters opposing you start questioning your beliefs. And make you think about it. And it's like, not only is it all of this thing about questioning your beliefs, and I'm going to save the spoiler warnings for everything so I don't fuck it up for anyone, because the game is just too good for me to ruin. But it's like this game brings to the forefront eventually the question of, do you even know who you are, sort of thing. Like it really presses and pushes like these boundaries of like, is everything you think the way it actually is, or are you fabricating this whole thing yourself to make yourself believe that the things you're doing are right?
Yeah. Like,
what is the truth? And like that kind of like really tripped me out as a kid, and I couldn't fully understand it at the time. And as I've gone back and played it multiple times over the last few years, god damn, like it may not be like given in a very like easy to understand format, but once you understand the format and you understand the way it's being presented to you, and I think Rebirth and Remake do a great job of exuding this and bringing this part to the forefront. It just is such a good fucking story. It is just super, super in there and out there at the same time, and I love it.
Okay.
And it's not like, you know, 80 to 70 to 80% of the game is about that stuff. And then the other 30% is your classic Final Fantasy villain bullshit where you're like, damn you, Sephiroth.
Yeah.
But right. even then, like,
mommy issues.
He is you think that, but he is a villain that when you sit there and give time to it, once you learn his story and you hear his side of things and you see it from multiple aspects and avenues in different places, you start to question, damn, he might have been right. He might have been fucking right. Yeah, that's the thing is, and I love villains like that. I love villains that have that.
I agree.
Have that empathy to them where I can be like, damn it, dude, you're fucking right.
Yeah.
You son of a bitch, you were fucking justified.
And he fucking shows up in Kingdom Hearts 1-2. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's
He's a
fucking
great
cool.
villain.
Oh yeah.
One of the best Final Fantasy villains, obviously. He's in everything. He's in fucking everywhere.
He's one of the
Fucking
poster characters.
Kingdom Hearts, fucking Final Fantasy. He's in what the hell is that thing called? Fucking Super Smash Brothers. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, Final Fantasy 7.
Okay.
Amazing. Freaking amazing.
For my second choice, well, it's not. I don't count it as one, but the Mass Effect trilogy. And again,
I would count that as a whole for you, even though it's 3 separate games.
Yeah, and the reason why I say the trilogy for listeners is because it's the only trilogy that basically functions as one story. Because each game is affected by the previous game. Whatever you do in the first game, all your actions carry over to the second game. All your actions the second carry over to the third, and nobody cares about Andromeda.
There's also Witcher.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Not whatever you do.
Not
like
in
that.
the sense, not in the full sense of where like the things you physically do in there have like literal repercussions towards the full ending, but there are major things you do in the first one and second one that cause certain things to happen in the third one.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the data doesn't transfer over because it won't remember what you did in the previous games. It's it's already written.
Well, no, the 2 to 3 did. 1 and 2 did not. 1 to 2 did the same thing that 3 does when you don't have previous save files and you had to fucking...
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know it. Anyway, point is, they pull from the save files and everything. But why is the Mass Effect story one of my favorite? It's my favorite sci-fi story. It's better. People are going to hate me. It's better than Star Wars by a long shot because Star Wars, again, is a fantasy. It's a great fantasy space Western opera with, lightsabers, knights, and evil and all this shit. Mass Effect is more grounded because it takes place in the Milky Way galaxy only. And you have to deal with this imminent threat. Again, spoiler warning for people who haven't played it. Skip over this part. But you have to save the galaxy from these ancient machines. Ancient as fuck machines called the Reapers. They came from, they existed like 50,000 years in the past, and they came back and to wipe out organic life because they see it as unnecessary. And so you, as Commander Shepard, male or female, doesn't matter. It's not important to the story. Mm-hmm. You are a Spectre, rank N7. You are the highest ranking human being in the Alliance in the Milky Way galaxy. So you have free reign to do as you please. But your goal, again, is to stop this mass invasion from happening. And it's written so well to the point where I can't complete this game on a negative playthrough at all. I can't be evil because I feel like shit. They do a great job immersing you in the game and making you feel for even the most insignificant characters. I've cried every time I play this game because I'm just like, the story is so good.
It's like, fuck you, Rex.
Especially Morden. But I won't explain what happens there. He's also funny. He's like the autistic scientist character, but he's really well written. But the music, phenomenal. The graphics were great for the time. I don't care what it looks like today. I still play it. But
even today, by today's standards, the graphics aren't terrible.
What's interesting, what stands out to me, why this is a better story than Star Wars, is because it's about uniting all the races in the galaxy against a common threat that seeks to wipe out all organic life. And you even have amazing actors such as Martin Sheen come in as the pseudo-villain in Mass Effect 2 and 3. And you have to choose by the end of the game, again, spoilers, you have to choose, do you want them to wipe out everything and restart? Do you want to be indoctrinated as a synthetic life form and just have all organics become synthetic and you don't have the problem of organic life or anything of the matter? You have to choose between like 6 different endings, which I know people had issues with. I thankfully got to play the original 6 before I patched it, and then I played those 6. I didn't really care. I'm like, yeah, it's fine, because there's one definitive one, which is why Mass Effect 4 is coming out. But more to the point, this game was just that these games were just that special. I wanted to do everything in the games. I wanted to do everything I could to save the galaxy because it felt right. It felt great. And I've never there's very few games where I'm that immersed in the world that I'm like, I can't do anything other than be a good person, because this is exactly what I do if this was real. And again, this is the reason why it's good, is because I could totally see this happening, because it takes place in a relatable place, the Milky Way galaxy. Earth is there. It's not gone. It is there. There's humans there. We discovered an advanced civilization to interact with other life forms, even though the only issue, but I can see this happening with the first game, is it's very racist towards humans. The aliens in particular do not like humans, and I can see why. Humans are arrogant and selfish, and they're like, you guys are pathetic. No wonder why you guys kill each other all the time. Versus the other races, especially even the Krogans, where they're just like, that's a more primitive warrior race of beings, but they solve everything much better than wiping out nations like we do on Earth. So, yeah, just all in all, I love the fucking trilogy. I will play that always, forever, because it's it's my favorite sci-fi story. Yeah, that's my second pick.
That is a good one.
Hell yeah!
I was going to say that's my favorite sci-fi. I think that is my favorite sci-fi story too. But I got one better. At least for me, in my opinion. But yeah, Mass Effect's great. I love that game. I have been meaning to do a replay, and I started one, but I haven't gone back to finish it. I'm like a third of the way through Mass Effect 1.
Okay.
So I'm not even a third, dude. I'm like 20% in. I haven't gotten Rex. I've only gotten Garen. Yeah, I barely on my first.
Garen? Garrus.
Garrus.
Garen is League of Legends.
Too much league. My bad. Don't listen.
Garrison is calibrations.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Copyright.
Imagine.
No, DMCA.
Okay, so but for me, my favorite science fiction is not like space-time science fiction. This one is BioShock.
Steampunk.
BioShock is amazing.
Yes, it is.
It is a.
But why that over Infinite?
I didn't really vibe or and I know somebody in the comments will come for me. Come at me for this. But BioShock ran so BioShock Infinite could walk.
Yeah, I agree.
BioShock Infinite was cool. Its combat was fun. You know, it was very active. It did a lot in terms of changing the way that the systems all ran in BioShock, and giving you freedom and choice and things like that. And the DLCs were really fucking cool. The story itself is awesome as hell.
Hell yes.
Like the ending is very full circle, and I won't spoiler that.
Yeah.
That one for anybody. But BioShock, without the first BioShock, there's no way you would have ever gotten to Infinite. And
the first one has a great fucking twist too.
So much for the series in general, but BioShock, you play as this person who is on a trip on a plane. The plane crashes. You end up at a lighthouse out in the middle of fucking buttfuck nowhere.
The prettiest water ever at the time in a video game.
Yeah,
I remember that the most.
Very real. It was very well done. But you get in the lighthouse, you go down, and you end up in this underwater city called Rapture, which was a
utopia.
What was it? It was a utopia. It was based off of communism.
Yeah.
Right?
Communism.
Yeah. It was based off of communism or socialism. Depends on I'm pretty sure. I think it was actually socialism. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember.
But this person, Andrew Ryan, made this place to turn it into a utopia for those trying to escape the current time Cold War bullshit. Get away from capitalism. Get away from all the stupid things that they viewed in America as not, again, I guess, another very highly politically driven game.
Oh, yeah. These are.
But creating a utopia and obviously not actually being able to sustain it. You end up in a broken down Rapture, the name of the city, that is overrun with these addicts, these people who were citizens once but got hooked on what is it called? Oh Lord, I forgot the name. Thank you, Google. Well, not plasmids, right? Is it plasmids?
I don't remember that part.
Captain
Preparation, huh? Shit.
I know. It was plasmids. Oh, look at me! I'm so smart. They get
Lol.
hooked on plasmids. Essentially, they're these tonics that give you different types of like abilities and things like that. They were used mostly or mainly for kind of like cognitive things, but they started becoming more. What's the word? They started becoming more physical, yeah, but that's not the word. More useful in everyday situations, whatever that word is. I can't remember.
I don't know either.
I feel like it starts with a C. But they started becoming more prevalent in everyday life. There's just like, here's a fire one so you can light your cigarettes or cigars whenever you want. An ice one to cool off your drinks and this and that. They were integrated so heavily into the people's lives that they didn't realize that these things would become some sort of addiction to them. And so people becoming more and more addicted to them ended up needing them for any purpose, to the point where they were killing other people. And that slowly brought about the demise of Rapture, slowly but surely. And as it started happening, the overseers of Rapture said, this is kind of not working. We need some sort of defense. And they started to, I don't want to say militarize, but they started to use these enforcers named Big Daddies.
The Big
Daddies are giant underwater suit wearing, very like old school style, with giant drills on their hands. They're just these massive forces of nature. Terrifying massive forces of nature. But forces of nature nonetheless. And they were sent out to protect these other creatures called Little Sisters. Essentially, throughout the game, you are given the choice to either absorb the Little Sister for life like the rest of these psychos, or save them and give them a second chance.
Yes. Save them.
It doesn't necessarily affect the ending of your game, but it is another game where morally, like, you can make some choices where it won't affect you, but if you're pretending to be the person that was in there, then it could affect you, sort of thing. But the whole story revolves around whether or not the choices we make are like our own choices. Another game where it's like, are you sure this is the thing that you want to be doing, or is it something else? I guess this one is an old enough game that I'll put a spoiler warning in there, because if you haven't played this game by now, you fucking failed.
Yeah, this is old enough to.
This is really old. This is
Xbox 360 days.
Yeah. So essentially, the character you play as throughout the story, you are given tasks by people and you go out and complete them. Basically, the objectives of the game, and that's how you progress through the game. Eventually, you get up to a point at the end where you finally catch up with the creator of said city, Andrew Ryan, and he begins to go on this giant spiel about none of us make choices that are our own. And so I wanted to prove that to people. Like, I wanted to prove that there's nothing you could do that is not a choice that has not been predestined for you. Everything is going to end the way that people say it is, and no matter what, you are a slave to that destiny. You cannot change that. And so, in a very fitting and iconic scene in the game, your character finds out that everything you've done in the game has been through his design. Obviously done through a very clever way of not hypnotization, but like enforcing it by speaking a phrase, sort of like a sleeper cell kind of bullshit. Like, you say the one phrase and then you do the thing.
Oh yeah.
And the phrase was, "Would you kindly?"
Would you kindly?
And so every time, usually after he tells you this, you go back and you have your little flashback, and every time somebody's asked you to do something, you see it. Would you kindly? Would you kindly? And you find out that none of these people you were talking to were even alive to begin with.
No.
Or real. They were all him. And it was all in service of bringing you to this point to, number one, kill him, and number two, prove the point of nobody has free choice in this world. I loved this idea and this philosophy so much that I got it tattooed on my arm. So
that's what that is.
Yeah. So like the main character has these 3 chain links. They're a lot smaller on his arms, and he sees them. He doesn't know why he has them, but he's had them forever. And so the moral at that point that Andrew Ryan runs to you is that a man chooses and a slave obeys. And as he says that to you, he hands you his cane and says, "Would you kindly kill me?" And you proceed to brutally murder him with his own cane because your character has no choice. It is all in service of that final moment. And it blew my fucking mind when that happened.
Me too.
As I played it, I was just like, this is fucking insane. Are you kidding me?
Good writing.
I was just like, where did this come from? It was the most left field thing I've ever had happen to me at that moment in time.
Yeah.
And
same here.
It's just such a good game. I want to deep dive more into these games, and I know we're running on time right now. So I'm gonna keep it short. But that is definitely hands down one of my top favorite stories.
My third one, try to keep this one short too, is Knights of the Old Republic. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. If you haven't played this one, that's your own fault. This shit is old as fuck. This is older than BioShock, for crying out loud. Why? This is heavily regarded amongst almost all Star Wars fans as the story that needs to be fucking adapted in the movies. Forget the Skywalkers. Okay?
That would be good.
This was a phenomenal. This was peak BioWare. Still peak. This was the beginnings of peak BioWare. This is where you could choose, yes, I could do the light side, dark side, or the middle. It had that. Your character didn't talk. You would just select stuff. Basically, what the story is about character. Again, spoiler warning. I don't care. You wake up on a ship. You're under attack. You're trying to get off. You meet this Jedi. You see the Jedi get killed by some guy with a red lightsaber, Sith at the time. And you're just like, fuck, I got to get out of here. You go through the game, learning how to be a Jedi and survive in the galaxy and doing all these quests. And you find out about this Sith Lord called Darth Revan. Who is Darth Revan? And then you find out, that's you, motherfucker. You have amnesia. You are the eminent Sith Lord that caused a bunch of fucking problems. And your apprentice...
are the eminence in shadow.
Yeah, no, we're not getting into that. But you're the problem. You were the problem. And then your apprentice, Darth Malak, tried to fucking kill you. And failed, clearly. He just gave your ass amnesia. So you need to go beat his ass. But what makes this story interesting, as compared to all Star Wars, especially even the the Skywalker saga, is the fact that this is the only Force user in all of Star Wars, non-canon or canon, that had full control of both the light and the dark side. I read the book Revan, and it talked about how he had to endure the wrath of the Sith Emperor that came later in the story, in the Old Republic, in the MMO. But yeah, he had complete control of both the light and the dark side of the Force, which has never fucking happened before. He could shit on Vader in a heartbeat if he wanted to. And I know people will say, no, he can't. He's the chosen one. This motherfucker's the chosen one too. He can only do the light and the dark side. No one else could. Vader couldn't do that. Palpatine couldn't do that.
Some would argue that Vader is not the chosen one.
No. But anyway, back to the main point. And the plot of this game is not only to get revenge on Darth Malak. It's to stop him from acquiring the Star Forge, or stop people from acquiring the Star Forge. What is the Star Forge? The Star Forge is an ancient galactic space station that has the power to endlessly create war materials and machines. So imagine having a space station that had infinite material, be able to pump out starships constantly, weapons of mass destructions forever and ever. You could easily conquer the galaxy in a heartbeat with a machine like that. And that is the whole goal of the game, is to, get there, stop it from being activated and all this other stuff. Or
activate it.
Yeah. And what's great about the story of this game is you care about the side characters. You care about the subplots and everything. It's all interesting because this is good Star Wars. This is shit, again, that needs to be handled with care with the remake if we're ever getting that shit, which is, I'm probably saying we're not because they don't want to make a voiceless character, because that's one thing that made this game special was the character had no voice. The voice was you in your head. Just like with Fallout 4, when the main character started talking, I'm like, oh, shut up. I don't want to listen to you talk. Fucking hell.
I would be fine with the voice acting as long as it's still like, you know, the choices of words you choose and everything. Like, as long as it's of that nature, I'd be fine with it. I don't think it's that bad.
Agreed, you're scary. But the point is, this is one of the best. And then the sequel is even great, too. Star Wars, Knights of the Republic 2, the Sith Lords, but that's a whole other topic. Not KOTOR 1, still the best, and the mechanics are great. It's classic CRPG style, like Dragon Age Origins, where it allows you to pause the game, think tactically about what you do, unpause the game, stuff like that in combat. And of course, this is BioWare, so they love writing lengthy dialogue text that you can select. And then when if your character speaks like in Mass Effect, they don't say the whole thing. They'll be like, "Oh, da 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 da," and then they'll say like one word. It's like, why did you type all this out if you're just gonna say one thing? I don't get it. I hate when they do that. But
yeah,
point is, yeah, Knights of the Old Republic, one of the best Star Wars stories ever. So that's my third choice. Your third choice.
That is a good one. Actually, it's my fourth one.
Oh yeah, fourth. That's right.
Yeah, Knights of the Old Republic's really good. I really do hope they get the remake because I would love to see it done in a modern era.
Yes.
I remember my whole thing. My whole thing was what was the girl's name?
Bastila.
Yeah, corrupting her was like my favorite part of that game. It was so good. I went Sith. My first playthrough, I went Sith and corrupted her and made her join me. It was great.
Jesus. Terrible.
I was just like, yeah, fuck the Emperor. Who?
The Emperor.
Let's see. What am my next one? I think I'll go with Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. And that one, I think that story was just insanely dark for what was promoted as a child's game.
I remember that as a kid. I'm like, this is terrifying.
This is not the canon of the game, obviously. I think the canon of the game is that Link falls down a hole and falls into another world. Basically, this is a isekai Legend of Zelda. But that's just what the game says. But the theory is that spoiler warning, I guess.
It's old as shit. Forget it.
This is more of a fucking game theory than a fucking actual thing. But the theory is that Link, after completing Ocarina of Time, for those of you who don't know, after Ocarina of Time, or at Ocarina of Time is where the Zelda timeline splits into 3 different things. You go with the future where Link survives, stays an adult, the one where Link survives and stays as a kid, and then the one where Link dies. This game essentially follows the storyline of Link surviving and then choosing to put the Master Sword back in its place and then leaving it and walking away and becoming a child and living out his life. As he's going through a forest, he comes across a giant hole. He's like half dead, falling asleep, etc., whatever you want to call it. And he falls down this hole. When he falls down that hole, technically, supposedly, he dies. And this place that he ends up is actually some form of afterlife or purgatory or something like that. Anyways, the story revolves around Link going into a new realm and having to solve this strange puzzle of saving the world as usual. But the moon has started to fall on the world, and you have 3 days to figure out how to solve it. The big cool wow, really? The big cool twist on this game was that you do have to figure it out, and you get a timer. It tells you here's your time, and it takes time to travel between places. So obviously, you got, what is it, 72 hours? That's 3 days, right?
Yeah, 3 days.
You get 72 hours to figure out how to stop the moon. And by the time you get through your first dungeon, you slowly start to realize that there is no way to solve this in 72 hours.
No.
And as your final moments close and you're like struggling, you're trying to figure it out, the fucking moon is falling and the game starts to cut to a cutscene and you just see the moon come down, just hit the fucking planet and just destroy it.
Big old creepy face.
And then, bam, you're back. Alive again. And you're like, what? What's going on? This might have been one of the first time loop games, now that I think about it.
I believe so. I remember, yeah.
So now you find out, after you've lost the game, that you actually get to try it over again. And there's ways to save the things you do during each time that cause you to come back and be able to start over and go through different things. So you're kind of, obviously there is a linear path to the dungeons you progress through because you need certain things from previous dungeon to get into the next ones. But it was an amazingly awesome concept for me as a child because I was like, oh, I don't actually lose this game. I start over. That's insane. So there's no way I can fail this mission. But you fail it a lot. You fail it quite many times. But it's definitely a cool story of going through these really dark person-centric storylines with which you meet characters. Every one of the masks you wear is a different persona of Link, essentially. And this whole story of him being in the afterlife is that he's putting on these different people who suffered these great tragedies and can't pass on. So he's putting on their mask to help them complete their task. That way they can pass on successfully and kind of relieve them of being a ghost. They grant him their powers, and he goes through and tries to figure it out. So you get Goron Link, you get Deku Link, you get or Deku, whatever. You get Zora Link. You get to be all these different characters from different races to solve the problems and go through these amazing, very beautiful designed dungeons that felt so unique and different from your standard typical, oh, it's the fire dungeon, it is the water temple, it is the fucking forest temple. Like it was so unique for a Legend of Zelda game at the time, and being not only just unique in the sense of design, but also with its, like I said, dark storylines. A lot of them dealing with deaths, untimely deaths, suicide, things like that. It was an unbelievably dark game for a child. It was also one of the few Zelda games that don't revolve around Link's battle with Ganon.
That's true.
And so, you know, the Skull Kid being your main antagonist, and come to find out it's not actually the Skull Kid, it's just Majora's Mask. Oh, it's the name. Yay, blah, blah, blah. But it is a really good game. A lot of people didn't like it, but I think it was the peak of Nintendo 64 Zelda games. And I think that shit deserves a fat remake for sure over Ocarina of Time. But, you know, fight me in the comments.
I'll fight you here. Shit. I tried playing. Ocarina of Time's cool. I tried playing Majora's Mask as a kid. And again, I was a kid. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. So I was just like, I keep dying. I don't like this game. So I returned it. Yeah. I couldn't understand it. I was like, what the hell is happening?
Even as a kid, like, it took me forever. I played that game forever, I tell you, until I beat it. And it was like super hard for me to like wrap my brain around like concepts in the game. But again, another one of those games where I went back and played it as an adult and got to see a different side of it. I got to see the side where I was like, damn, I don't think they made this game for kids.
No.
They definitely marketed it as such and they built it up as such, but this game definitely has some adult overtones to it.
Oh yeah. For my fourth game, it's Red Dead Redemption 2. I will fight you later about this because I know you're one of those idiots that are like, Red Dead Redemption 1's better. It's not.
I still think 1 is better.
It's not. John Marston's terrible. But this one I won't spoil because the spoiler would be too great a spoil, especially for Jose because I know he hasn't played it yet. But basically an overview. You play as Arthur Morgan. He's a criminal. He's part of this gang. This is a prequel to Red Dead Redemption 1. John Marston's there, the protagonist from the original game. And You're basically on the run from the authorities. You need to hide out and you need to set up camp and start earning money again, because there's a bunch of money you left behind in the town you're running from, and the government is on your ass, which is a big no-no for train robbers and shit back in the old Wild West. That's where you fucked up, is when the government steps in, or
those
big
Pinkertons.
Yeah, the fucking Pinkerton agency, and you can't go back there. So, what makes this game, in my opinion, so special? Again, it made me cry. First of all, music's great. The level of realism is fantastic, although a little over the top when it comes to looting bodies, for example, or looting items. You're literally watching Arthur Morgan pick up a body, pat him down, look for stuff, and then drop the body. Instead of just doing this standard scoop animation and just pick up items, he's fully going through the drawers of a cabinet or through, someone's clothing, looking for items and pocketing the money or whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is getting old really fast. I don't want to sit here and go through 50 bodies. I just want to walk over it and swing my hand and I pick up everything. But other than that, the game is fantastic. The visuals are great. It's like the best Wild West game I've ever played. But what really stands out to me is the story, because Arthur Morgan is more relatable than John Marston. John Marston is your typical, I'm going to be a good cowboy. I'm going to serve the sheriff and hunt down the people from my gang and kill them for justice. That's what you do in the first game. You hunt down Dutch's gang, pew, pew, pew. You get, your freedom from the government, the police. They leave you alone because you help them out. But
great story.
It is. But this one, you're already criminal. And why do I like this? Because I like stories when there's a villain that or a bad person, in this case, a criminal, and he realizes, fuck, I made some mistakes, so I should either A, make the best of it or make the worst of it. This is another game where you can decide the outcome to a certain degree of the character. Do you want to do you want to be a good Samaritan while you're still being a criminal, or do you want to be an asshole? My first playthrough, I was an asshole, and it changed a lot of the ending aspects, and I cried because I was like, shit, I knew I should have been a better person. And on my second playthrough, I was a better person, and I cried because I'm like, I feel better. And why does this sound better to me, too? Because it's relatable. Because, everyone makes a lot of mistakes in life. Some mistakes are so great, there's nothing you can do to fix them. In this case, Arthur Morgan couldn't really do anything because all he knew was how to be a criminal. He was trying to make the best out of it. Sure, he wanted a simple life, but he was so far in, and he has loyalty to Dutch and the gang that he's not going to pull out and be like, bye. Plus, I don't think they would have let him leave because it's like, you're too close with everyone here, which is typically how gangs operate. You don't want your member that knows so much about the organization to just leave. It's like, no, you're going to stay with us until you're dead, sort of thing.
Yeah, basically.
But for me, it really hit home with Arthur. Yeah, for me, it really hit home with Arthur because I'm like, this guy is already going to be on his way out because he's a criminal. There's no way he's getting a fucking happy ending.
Yeah,
which he doesn't, because he's not in Red Dead Redemption 1. He's not even mentioned because the game didn't exist back then. But more to the point, I was able to empathize with his character a lot because of that. Because I've been in situations where I'm like, I'm too far in this. Whatever I'm doing, I'm like, I might as well write it out and see what happens, sort of thing. And it makes him a more grounded character because he's flawed. He's not... John Marston is flawed, but not that much in the first game. Because again, he's working with the authorities to bring down his old gang members. That's not really relatable in society. You're not like working with the police to bring down people from your old gang for the most part. Most people that play games don't do that.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's why I really liked it. The characters were fantastic. The depth of the world building and everything was fantastic. And even the post-game content, which I won't spoil, is fantastic because it's a lot slower because you're already past the main part of the game. The epilogue is slow and chill, and it leads you right into Red Dead Redemption 1. So I highly recommend playing that game because it's phenomenal. It'll make you tear up if you like story-based games. But yeah, that is my fourth game choice for top video game stories.
Yeah, I'll get back to it eventually. It goes on sale all the time, so I'll give it another
Yes.
shot. I'm sure there'll be a day I feel like playing a Western and being a cowboy, and I'll do that.
And now for our final reveals of
All
the
right.
games.
My
Stories.
final one, the last one I got, is going to be a hot topic for a lot of anime nerds out there. But
Jose for sure.
I think personally, at least for me, personally, in my opinion, you don't fucking fight me on this. Jesus Christ, you fucking nerds. Persona 4. Persona 4 has to be one of my favorite RPG stories ever. It is just super good because you play as a kid you can name as whoever you want. It's high school age, transferring because his parents are away out of town overseas or whatever. They don't really dive into what they really do that much, just they're business people. But they're away. So they send you to live with your uncle and cousin for the summer, or for a year basically. And it's basically a pretty standard, straightforward story for the most part. You get there, it's one of those things where you build up relationships with people. But when you move there, all of a sudden a string of murders start happening. The first murder that happens is a body is hung up from like a telephone pole at the top, and like,
damn,
it's creepy, and it's a little weird, and your character doesn't have too much emotion to themselves in the beginning. They're kind of a blank slate, if you would, and we'll get further on that as we go along. But you start to wonder. You start to have these weird things happen, and you end up watching TV at midnight because there's this rumor that if you turn on the TV at midnight, there's a special channel that shows up, and it shows the murders happening. And so you see it, and then you make some friends, and you all see it, and you're like, well, we got to freaking solve the murder. So it is kind of a murder mystery. But it's got an amazing twist at the end. And I don't know if I want to spoil this one because this is a really good one. I'm not going to spoil this one.
Okay.
I loved it. I loved the twist at the end of it. And so your character, you go through making these relationships with these people. Your whole thing is that you find these personas, these otherworldly beings that are you, essentially. They are facets to your character. They are the things that you hide from, things that you repress, and there's a lot of. This game is very heavy on psychological traumas, psychology in general, and dealing with said traumas in whatever ways that you can. So each of the characters you meet has their own relatively tragic backstory and things that they go through, things that they have to suffer through, essentially, until your character comes along and invades their palaces, which are essentially, in this game, the way they do it is you dive through the TVs at midnight and you go into the Shadow Realm. And when you're in the Shadow Realm, you essentially find these palaces and you go through them to find the core of the problem in the palace. Core of the problem being, any sort of number of things, but they are influenced heavily by the outside, the actual world, the real world. And so the palaces change due to the people, the way that people think about the beings. It's very metaphysical and very intangible. You go through, solve all these palaces, save these people from themselves, essentially. Get them to accept things inside that they repress or hide. They all give you their sad stories or their reason for doing so, and you basically work your way up to finding the murderer. Once you find the murderer, game's done. You get the game over. Blah 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 blah. Cool thing about this thing is, though, especially for me in the story, is that that's actually not the real ending. The that is an ending. So this game has multiple endings.
Oh, okay.
But there is a way to get to the true ending, but it's stupid. It's so dumb. It takes sheer fucking luck or reading a guide online. But if you read a guide online, you might fucking spoil it. So I would say, like, do a save. If you're going to play the game, do a save right before the end, or after you complete the last dungeon or complete a dungeon. That way you don't fuck it up for yourself and spoil it. And then you can just retry the ending. By the time you're doing this part, you're going to kind of have an idea of who you think the bad guy is. But the bad guy is actually not the person you think it is. It's so good. And the twist just comes out of left field. You don't see it coming at all from the beginning. And then towards the end, it starts to line up to it. And you're like, things start becoming more suspicious. And you're like, I'm an investigator. Why wouldn't I investigate? It's just so good. It just deals with so many things that I think people deal with on not a daily basis, but a lot of people end up having to deal with at some point in their life. And there's so many different characters who have all these different problems that you can resonate with at least one of them. And it was, aside from the Pokemon-esqueness of capturing personas or convincing them to join you and making new ones, etc. The story of the game and this, as your character goes through the game and gets all these people changed and helps them release their repressed emotions, he starts building up his own character, his own self. So he is a blank slate, but his experiences throughout the game start to shape him as a character and make him more and more of a person and less of another NPC walking in the crowd.
That's good.
And it's a really good story, a really fun time. I love murder mystery stuff, whodunit kind of things.
Yeah.
So I was able to get really into it compared to the other Persona games that were very straightforward about what they were. I felt like this one was good and different. Not to mention the whole Persona system was based on tarot cards, and I fucking love tarot. So I really enjoyed that part of it as well.
Tarot. Okay. Well, for me, I haven't played any Persona games. I didn't have any interest in it until, like, Jose decided to tell me, he's like, you really should try Persona 5. I'm like, okay. I bought it on sale, the Ultimate Edition or whatever. I'm like, all right, this is going to be on my playlist. It's the 5th one, not the 4th like you just talked about, but I'm still going to play it.
Do you have Persona 5 Royal or Persona 5 Ultimate?
It's Royal. That's the, cool. That's the big one.
The Royal Ultimate. Got it.
And I'm like, I love big narratives that take forever, like 100 hours of gameplay, like Dragon Quest 11. I'm like, I love a game that just keeps going and going. But anywho, for my 5th game, top story, it was actually a recent entry of last year. It is the game that branched off a new series of games. Yakuza 7, a.k.a. Yakuza Like a Dragon. It is fucking phenomenal. It is one of the best random games I've ever played, because I went in there thinking, oh, okay, this is going to be just a story about Yakuza. No. Essentially it is, but it has the weirdest shit possible. Imagine, actually, you don't have to imagine. Look at proof of Japanese game shows, take that energy and throw that shit into this game, into these new Yakuza games. That's exactly what the fuck is happening. It's like someone smoked crack and decided to write all the all the mini games and shit and throw it in here, because that shit is in the Yakuza games, including, not including the karaoke, because that's not cocaine related or game show related, but that's a staple in Asian society. But
no,
why
cocaine's related?
Shut the But more to the point of why I put this in my top 5 of video game stories is because, without spoiling too much, because it's a more recent game, the story about a young man, Ichiban Kasuga, he decided to, well, first of all, he was abandoned as a child. He was raised in a soap land. A soap land is more or less a prostitution system.
Whorehouse.
Yeah, it's a whorehouse with soap and cleaning and all that stuff. But more to the point, he was raised in a building run by those staff members. So he learned the ins and outs of prostitution that way, but he grew up in the underworld in that way, not as a normal kid, because he didn't have any parents. And at one point, he runs into Arakawa, the leader of a small Yakuza group, and he manages to win him over because he likes what Arakawa stands for as a Yakuza. Not just going around bullying people. It's like, no, he wants to keep the peace in Japan and have good people and good, Yakuza members. It's not like your standard ones that you see in movies where they're just fucking thugs and everything. That's the other Yakuza groups. This family was a normal one. And it gets to a point...
Real family.
Yeah, basically, that's the whole emphasis. And it gets to a point...
Terrible hangnail.
Where Kasuga is almost killed, and he wakes up in a homeless encampment. He's like, how the fuck did this happen? How did I almost die? And there's another part I'm leaving out for a reason as to what this happened. And you have to find out what happened, and you find out that yes, your old family was involved with something with current Yakuza, and you go around trying to pick yourself back up because you fell down from the top in society. You were part of the Yakuza, and now you're no longer. And you work together with these people to solve the mystery of what the fuck happened. And there's points in there that make you cry because the big twist that came at the end, I was just like, who wrote this story? You need to have a job forever because you're an amazing writer. Especially, I'm just going to say this because the people who played it, the switch off with lockers. That's all I'm going to say. And the people who play this are going to be like, I know what he's talking about. I didn't see that shit coming. I didn't see any of this coming. Later on, I'm like, oh, this is the bad guy? No, this is the bad guy. And all this other stuff. It is really
a good twist.
Oh my god, it caught me off guard like a motherfucker. It was so well done, and the main character is very immature, but he matures normally. And what I mean by immature is he has blind devotion to the people he cares about to the point where,
mostly.
Naivety
more
where he's very naive, and he will do whatever he can for those people, despite the fact that they may be pieces of shit. He wants to turn them around and let them see the error of their ways. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it works. And they could be too far gone, but then people realize, shit, maybe I really did fuck up and I should have gone down a different path. I won't spoil more. But all of that compiled in the game with goofy ass mini games, like you going on a quest to save a fucking lobster in the sewage water because it's this man's pet as a side quest, and then he's gonna cook it because it's his friend and he raised it, or the fact that there's ultimate abilities of a homeless guy throwing birdseed at someone and then you getting attacked by pigeons, or this Yakuza member has a fetish for dressing up as a baby, and it's like, what the fuck is going on in these Yakuza games? It's so weird, but it's so good with the story. They really kicked ass. Unfortunately, the sequel, according to people who've played it, Infinite Wealth, was not that good in story-wise. I will play that later this year or next year, whenever it goes on sale. But Yakuza Like a Dragon, I highly recommend it for people that want to play a turn-based RPG in a modern setting in Japan. It takes place in 2019, I believe. And with an amazing story. And then after that, you can play Yakuza Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, followed by Infinite Wealth, followed by Like a Dragon Pirate in Hawaii, which is Majima's personal story. But you need to play the previous games to know how he ended up in Hawaii. It's so... And what's interesting about this game is usually when you fight in a JRPG, it's like, okay, the battle music starts, and then you go to the fight with whoever you see. The battle music starts, the enemies change their appearance based on how Kasuga views them. So if you run into this creepy guy and his name is like Pervert, his appearance will change into being almost completely naked, and he's covered with like a lab coat, and his attacks are flashing you to make your party confused or something. It's so random, like Japanese game shows, but the story is fantastic. So I highly recommend playing that game. That is my number 5 and last pick for top video game stories of all time. Yeah,
that's a good one. That's not bad. I know a lot of people like it. I've never gotten around to it, but I did watch you stream it.
You
so
did?
I got,
Yeah.
I got that. So maybe I'll stream the actual Yakuza games for you. That
Okay.
way you can watch those and you don't have to fucking
just YouTube it or Wikipedia.
YouTube it. Probably should still YouTube it.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, shoot, the state of video game stories has changed drastically over the years. Narratives have just grown and grown, and while some of the stories have become super wild, we find those diamonds in the rough where we're like, damn, that was a good story.
Oh,
the ones you just can't forget.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we had a second topic, but I think we ran a little long.
We went fucking hour and 50 minutes. That was long.
So we might have to postpone that one for next week.
That works. Or the week after, whenever.
But shoot, I think let's call it there for today.
Okay.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys got something out of that. If you got different picks for a good story, post it in the comments, post it wherever you listen to it.
Yeah.
What's your favorite story? What kind of things get you guys running and give you that drive in video games that make you want to sit there and consume it for hours on hours on hours with no thought of like eating or sleeping?
Yeah.
Please bathe. But I mean, like,
please
you know
bathe.
what I mean? But shoot, before we head out, Mr. Seger, where can everyone find you on
You can find me primarily on Twitch at Seger Plays, Seger Plays, or on YouTube, or specifically on Instagram, Seger Plays or Seger VFX. I'm everywhere. I'm even on Twitter, same handles. How about you?
I am only on the For the Geeks Instagram.
That's right.
Which is For the Geeks with 2 S's on it. So if you guys want, check that out. You can also go to youtube.com.
Check the links below.
Podcast. Check for the links. All the links are there. Give us a follow, subscribe, that kind of stuff. Keep up with us. Give us some interaction. We love to talk about anything video game related, nerd related, really.
Yes.
Got nothing else. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you guys next time. And next time we will talk about video game prices and where
anything else that comes up. Yeah.
Where we're looking at that. And we'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much.
And remember, game like you mean it.